Welcome to This Week in Perspective with me, Adam Simbe. The issue of the wrong textbooks or textbooks in schools, which are supposedly published by the Tanzania Institute of Education, was raised in the current session of Parliament, which has just ended, and therefore raised a great concern or some eyebrows on whether the children are learning on the wrong books. To discuss this seriousness, of course, of the wrong books with me today are, on my right, Dr. Dina Baga, who is former lecturer at the Department of Education, University of Dar es Salaam. Next is again a regular participant, Charles Pinon Mabonda, who was former Director of Secondary Education, Education. To my left, the first is Professor Justinian Clinton Galabawa, still teaching at the University of Dar es Salaam as an emeritus professor of education, but is a very serious and important stakeholder in his own right. And last but not least, another mwalimu, Bariki Moshi, who is a school books publisher by the name of Mture Publishing Company. So, the four panelists here will try and help us understand what's going on in the school books, publishing and distribution, whatever. Is it true that the books which were withdrawn recently by the ministry were such wrong books? Wrong is a broader explanation, but what was in the content of these books was not very satisfactory, and hence they were withdrawn. So let's start by trying to answer this question first. Is it true that children in schools are learning on wrong books published and distributed by Tanzania Institute of Education? And how serious is the status of school books today? Can I start with the professor? I know you are cleaning your glasses ready for discussion. Is it true that children in schools are learning on wrong books published and distributed by Tanzania Institute of Education? And how serious is the status of school books today? You will all respond to the same question.
Well, let me say, since the books were withdrawn by the government or by the Institute of Education, therefore, it is our expectation that there is something wrong in the system. And we are not sure in the public schools. I wouldn't like to say things which I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they have other books they are using as we are speaking now. Therefore, I would say that the situation is serious. Because if you reach a situation where you have to withdraw books from the educational system, even for 1 week, even for 3 months, then there is something wrong with the system. Maybe that's why we should start by answering the question, why are they called wrong books? Why were they withdrawn and called wrong books? And why did they do it? Why did we reach that stage of having wrong books in the educational system, even if it is the public school system? And who was responsible for doing that? For sure, if the students had started using those wrong books, then there is something wrong with the system. Now, let me give you the teachers' views. Some of the teachers I've talked to, teachers in my school.
Take into account that all your other panelists are
also teachers. Yeah.
Some
of the teachers' arguments as follows. And you remember, the teachers were the main people who wanted to have a quality textbook in school for students, but also for reference. Teachers are arguing that the books which we have now are not based on the right stages of child development, especially in primary school, where children have to start maybe with concrete objects, and then they move to abstract objects. when you are writing a book. I'm not an expert in books, but that's the argument of the teacher. That's the first thing, that the books don't follow the stage of development of the children. The second issue which the teachers are raising is that they don't cover the depth of the syllabus as required. And especially, you remember the Tanzania Institute of Education has been arguing for some years that they are going to bring to us competence-based curriculum. What the teachers are not seeing that competence-based in the textbooks which they have given us. In other words, they are saying the three components of competence-based curriculum are not shown in these books. One component is they are not learner-centric. They are not friendly to the learner. The learner can't use those textbooks when there is no teacher. But secondly, they are not outcome-based, which is very difficult, because most of the books all over the world, they are 75% content-based and only 25% outcome-based, because you don't know the outcomes. The outcomes are in the future. So the teachers are arguing that although the institute said they are going to give us competence-based textbook, they don't see that competence-based in those textbooks. And lastly, they think the books are not differentiating the learners, especially in terms of content validity over the whole Tanzania geographical area. But they are also arguing that there is poor language use, language which is not elaborative, especially at secondary school level. They are also saying that these books have few problems. They don't incite the learners to start practicing on his own. They don't have so many required solutions on particular content like physics or mathematics. But they are also arguing that there is very low content validity in these new books.
But I mean, the teacher referring to the books which have been withdrawn?
Yes, which have been withdrawn. The teachers who have used them.
Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately, I haven't used the books, but I am referring to what the teachers are saying, and they are telling me. And on some situations, I would like to agree with the teachers that I think there is a lot which is lacking. But in terms of professionalism, there is a thinking that the process that was used maybe to producing these textbooks was hurriedly done. They were hurriedly done. And the teachers and other people like me also, we think writing a book is not something that you can call somebody from a school or a college and tell him to write a book in 1 week or in 3 weeks.
But can you bring together a couple of teachers, maybe 10, and ask them to start the exercise?
I think it is a wrong methodology, I have said. It's a wrong methodology, because this is a talent. Writing books is a talent.
Not every teacher has.
Not everybody can write books, because if you look at the books we used in the 60s, 70s, they are still being used by now. Yeah. For example, in advanced mathematics, the best book we have is that written by Tranter. He was a classroom teacher, and he had enough time to write that textbook. The other book we were using in physics, and it's still being used now, is Nelcon
and Parker.
And Nelcon and Parker. That is physics. It is still in the bookstores in Dar es Salaam, and we are still using them. But those guys...
But all these were Zungus, isn't it?
Well, but the Africans can also... We have very good Africans in Tanzania who can write these books on their own. So what you are saying, that writing a book is a talent. Okay. It's not something you can call people 1 week, tell them to write it because they are in the classroom. The other issue which is raising from these books, people are saying the style which is being used, that teachers are preparing notes, and they are giving these notes Tanzania Institute of Education to be able to come up with the textbook. These are notes. You need somebody to think.
Can you explain again this
notes? If you have been in schools in Tanzania, most teachers prepare their handouts and notes. Now people are arguing you can't use this to write book. You can't use this, print them, edit them, and take them to a publisher. You need somebody who sits down and writes a book on physics, so that the book can have content validity, but it can also be based on competence-based, and somebody who has very huge experience over time.
You don't have this kind of expertise at the Institute of Education?
I would like to give a straight answer, but I don't think the institute has that capacity of writing books.
We'll come back to that because Mwalimu,
they can organize, they
work
can
with
coordinate,
yes.
but I don't think everybody who goes in that institute is a book writer. Essentially, remember, the Institute of Curriculum Development is supposed to deal with curriculum development, teaching and learning materials development, but not writing books and publishing.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's turn to former Director of Secondary Education. How do you see this situation?
Professor has highlighted some of the basic things. The fact that the teacher is the key, the focal person really in the teaching and learning, and therefore the teaching and learning materials, the textbook being one of them. It is important that we understand what is a textbook. Some other people call it the course book, because it is the book or the readings which gives the course, or which goes to according to the course that is supposed to be taken. And some of the qualities of a good textbook he has mentioned. And I want to say that it's not only qualities of a book, but qualities of a book that we call a textbook. There are things that have to be in that book.
In terms of content,
in terms of content. But not only content, also how we present it. Because it's not only that we have the content, we should also make it friendly to the users. And the users are both the teacher and the student. And therefore, it has to be written in a way that the teacher will find it friendly. The teacher will find it easy to use, but not only easy to use, but it will communicate to the expected learner. And not only communicate, but make him or her learn, because that's the primary purpose of the textbook. And learn that which is supposed to be learned, which is part of the syllabus. And therefore, coming back to the question, is it a wrong book? You need to answer, or you need to ask yourself, wrong book because of the wrong content, or wrong book because the way it has been written will not present the content as it is supposed to be presented, or even wrong because it will not present the content in a way that the expected learner will get from it that which is expected from him to get, the true facts. It will be interesting to him or her, and therefore make him or her be interested in taking that content.
Okay. Dina, you are the only lady, so I'm not being a bit funny here, but I'll come to you to follow up on the discussion with the two walimus. Let me turn to Bariki Moshi, because he is a teacher, but he's also specialized in publishing. He's more of an expert of publisher these days than probably Mwalimu in the classroom. What is your comment on this issue?
My comment is that the books that have been stopped, they don't deserve to be in schools. I agree fully with the government in that they don't deserve to be in schools, because, as Professor has just said, most of them have not targeted the right child. For example, a book on Kiswahili starts giving detailed explanation in the book to children who are just starting to learn. The same applies to the English language book. So to me, the first time I saw some of the books, the mere sight of the cover showed that there's something wrong with whoever has handled this.
But say, Mariki, you know, this adage that you can't judge the book by its cover.
Yes, but then you start with the cover. You can actually start with the cover. If you see, for example, I learn English, then you start asking questions. Is this the correct title? Is this a title of a book?
Okay.
Or is it people giving a statement? But the title of the book, as far as publishing is concerned,
yes,
the title of the book reflects the publisher's
view
on how the subject
focus on that. Yes.
It reflects the publisher's view of how the subject should be learned or taught.
Okay.
Now that reflects the people's saying he always learns the English language, and the emphasis is on language. So you start saying there's something wrong with this one, and then you go inside.
Is English a subject at Standard 3? You teachers can correct me.
Yeah.
Because this book was supposed to be for Standard 3.
Yes.
It starts in Standard 3.
Yes.
Starts.
The new curriculum states that English should not begin at Standard 1 as it was in the past. It should now start at Standard 3. Now, the question of books. Books are one of the three major aspects in successful education.
Okay.
They are books, and then there are teachers, then there's a general environment of the classroom and the school. Those three aspects are major. Now, the teacher, a good teacher can do wonders. And a good book can also do wonders, even without a teacher. Now, the absence of any of those three aspects means the education quality goes down. And right now, there haven't been books for quite some time, and the consequences can be very severe.
When you say they haven't been, I mean they haven't
the
been
last time the schools received books is about 3 or 4 years back, and they were expecting these from the Institute of Education,
Yes.
and which have now been shelved. So, well, what I know is that there are no books in the schools.
Okay,
that
thank
level.
you. Now let's listen to another educationist here, who is also an activist, Dina. How does this subject of books, wrong books in that, to be more specific, rub you as a former teacher in the present situation? Then we'll move on to the next question of the overall policy, I suppose.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be part of the panel. First of all, it's very irritating. As Professor said, he raised a question of the books have been withheld or removed from the shelves. Now that raises two questions. The first question is the question of quality assurance. Where is quality assurance? And did the ministry have to wait until people raise their voices?
At least a member of parliament.
A member of parliament, for them to realize that something is wrong. So we are touching on we are trading on very thin thread here when it comes to education. And you know, education is the key to development. Now, if we mess up with education, we are messing up with a lot of things. Professor mentioned about the content. He also mentioned about the fact that things are done in a hurry. I think once I also said, not the same thing in the same words, but it's like there's a competition to change things. But change things for what? Very briefly, this mass production of textbook came as a result of liberalization. But also it was a way of motivating people to Tanzanians to write books. But as the professor says, the intention was good, but something which was forgotten is that not everybody has the skills to write a book. You can, no, neither the skills to teach, for that matter. But okay, let's leave the teaching aside. Writing a book needs concentration. Writing a book needs to do a research. Writing a book needs to have the target group in your mind. What transpired here is a clear evidence that people were writing books because they wanted to write book. If I may refer to the same book that says I Learn English,
Yes.
inside here you see bits and pieces. You don't see something concrete. You see pictures, you see. I would have expected to see a story, then you base your questions on something which is concrete. There is also something inside here which says, look at the insects when you have even flowers. So, okay, let's forget about this because this has been taken out of the shelves.
Yes.
But let's look at the principle of books, having books in a classroom. As my friend here said, we have two types of books. You have the textbook, which is the core, and teachers, because of the kind of training, are relying on the textbook. Now, that raises a number of questions on the quality of teachers, how we train our teachers, how we use our teachers. Like, if somebody asked me about what kind of teachers, I would say, let's start with the quality of education. It's something very difficult to define, and the professor knows, and everybody can chip in. But you can't look at the book without tying it, as we have raised, to the policy, without tying it to the quality of teachers, the environment that the teachers are. I think it is 2 days ago, somebody was talking about schools in Mbeya, if I'm specific, which have 200 students in a class. So again, you are adding injury to the pain when we even bring the wrong textbooks. Here is a teacher struggling with so many students. You are bringing in the wrong books. My question is still, where are we heading to?
Or how did we come up to this stage?
Yeah,
isn't it?
okay, the professor talks about the curriculum and the syllabus. I'm not sure if we all know that we don't know where we are heading to. We don't know where we are heading to because our country is now going for, industrialization or industries. So maybe it was fair for these books to be removed because now we have to start a new curriculum because the policy is building a country which is going for industries, right? So again, it needs a lot of thinking when you are writing because you want to tie the kind of education that you are going to give, the kind of people you want to produce, the kind of society you are trying to build. You know? So these books have been removed. Maybe they should go forever because now we are starting a new country. But we are talking about frequent changes. That's why things are done in a hurry because we have to catch up with the changes. Now, there was this new KKK, is reading, writing, and arithmetic, and 2 teachers were pulled from each school to go to Dodoma and be brushed up. Then they're supposed to come back to the school and do a training of the trainers. You know, we are mixing up things. When they come back, teachers are not motivated.
Are they themselves motivated from the
That's the thing. You don't have the right helping materials or teaching materials. Or guidelines. Then there's something called new curriculum for standard 3, I think. And then 2 teachers pulled from each school and taken to Bagamoyo. You know, we are changing things. Sometimes I'm saying, let's look at what other countries are doing. It's good to be focused. It's good to have changes because development is never static. But let me give an example of America. Americans have something called American Dream. So whichever president comes, the American dream remains. My question is, it's good to talk about textbooks. What is our current dream of the society we want to build
In Tanzania.
in Tanzania, so that all these things can tie together. Let me stop there for now.
Well, Professor, did that rub you well? Do we have a policy anyway on books, school books?
If you look at we have a policy, but he talked about the American dream. But also the American dream is dangerous, you know.
That is just an example.
I'm telling
Example.
you,
Yeah.
I like the American dream, but we are not America. We are not America. Because the reason why I said I don't not that I don't like your statements, but you see, this competence-based was borrowed from the American Council of Education. Because when the Americans talk about learner-centric, outcome-based, differentiated learning, they have reasons which we may not have now. I'm not saying we have to replicate the transition and reach America, but we have to be careful. Everything is based on the American Council of Education. And people who have been attending these seminars are misleading us when they come back. But let me answer your question on policy. If you look at the 2014, this is the most recent educational policy. It is written in Swahili. But for the benefit of our viewers, I will read it in English. I will translate it in English so that people who are following the program. And it is on the objective of quality environment of teaching and learning. Kuwa na mazingira bora ya kufundishia na kujifunza. It is written, there are 3 statements. 3.2.10 in Kiswahili, but let me say it in English. It says, the government will make sure that there is one quality textbook for each subject, for each student at basic level, that is from primary one up to Form 4 at basic level. Such textbook will be prepared through a spatial, efficient, and effective program without waste and meeting the objective. So these books which were prepared were not prepared through an efficient and effective program. We may ask our question, why? Why was it not prepared? The policy is clear. So people didn't follow the policy efficiently. A lot of waste. Actually, we have already lost 144 billion shillings, which were given to TAMISEMI to buy the books. I was looking in the budget for 2016. 144 billion shillings to buy the books from TAI. It's not a question of withdrawing books. It's a question of wasting money, billions of money. If we wasted 144 billion for the books, the money we gave to TAMISEMI through the parliament to buy the books from TAI, times 2 for publishing, let's say it is equivalent to 144. We have already lost 300 billion textbooks. That's one. But the second part of the policy, it's also written in Kiswahili. I will also translate it very fast. It says, serikali itakishe kuwepo kwa miundo. Okay. The government will produce and supervise the use of one textbook for each subject. In other words, if at secondary level, we are supposed to have for each child almost 9 textbooks for each child. And I understand
9 books per child.
Yes, because if the minimum is almost 9 subjects.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether it's commerce, whether it is arts, whether it is science, but at least 9 subjects. And each textbook is almost 10,000. I think that's the cost of this textbook.
Yes.
So it is 90,000 per child. So the government will produce and supervise the use of one textbook for each subject that will be content valid. The policy is very good. Content valid. This is what Mr. Mushi was talking about. Are these books content valid? They have no validity as far as the content is concerned. So we have wasted, we didn't follow the policy, content valid, so as to avoid differentiation, so that you can have the same content across Tanzania. You can have the same content in Ngara, the same content in Karagwe, the same content in Mbeya, in Mbozi.
Yes, thank you.
And so that when the students sit for the exam, the exam has content validity and reliability. But this was not. So what I'm saying, there is a lot of waste. It's not just withdrawing textbooks. It's a question of what Dina said. Look at the amount of human capital we are losing for a generation through producing these low quality textbooks.
Because, I mean, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
If they were all produced by the Institute of Education, is this organization really, I shouldn't use the word qualified, but is it competent? Is this the right organization to be doing that kind of very serious and fundamental exercise?
Maybe we have to, what Dina said,
Yes.
the quality assurance.
Yes.
Do they have really the quality assurance department? And can't we learn from other people, other countries?
Yeah.
Who produces textbooks for schools? Is it necessary that they should be produced by an institute during using seminars and workshops? Or we can take an individual, somebody who is very good in biology,
Yes.
he has a lot of experience in biology, he has taught at several stages in Tanzania. We put him somewhere or ask him to write a book and we look at what he has done. I think this is what done in other countries. Or we can check which book is very good in the market and then tag a price on it.
Yes.
And buy that textbook.
Yes, I was still going to ask Zaire Barikimoshi. You were once at the Institute of Education. Now, you can respond to this. I mean, the issue which Professor has just raised and Dina raised is the same. Do they have the expertise in quality assurance and quality control at the institute to produce all these books and to spend all the money that Professor was talking about, and all the money goes into the drain by withdrawing this kind of poorly qualified, poorly prepared or published books?
The production of a book requires two types of people. The first type of people is the author or the authors, the person who writes a book. Now, writing a book is an art aspect. Art, just like a person who draws pictures, a person who creates songs and sings, a person who illustrates. Now, a book writer is also an artist because he creates something which is not there. Just like an artist, just like a singer, he creates something which was not there. Now, these people are natural people. They are not people who are appointed.
Yes.
You cannot appoint an artist,
Yes.
or you cannot appoint an illustrator. You cannot appoint a singer. Tell him, now I appoint you to be a singer. Now, the problem that has taken place is that the government has appointed a writer. Now, writers are all over the country. You find them in Songea, you find them in Kagera, in Tanga, wherever. And these authors, they write out of their own, they make their own decisions to write. And they write and they send their manuscripts. The things they write before their books are known as manuscripts. And they take them to the publisher. They know the next author has written. It's just writing, there are no pictures, but the publisher has artists in the publishing house who create the book, who sort of bring out the book, who show the illustrators where to draw pictures and what type of pictures should be drawn, or whatever other drawings that the book requires. Now, those two artistic institutions bring out the book, which goes to the printer, and which once the book is produced, then the publisher stores the copies in his store and printer sells them.
The printer also decides what kind of paper to use in the printing.
No. All the decisions are made by the publisher. Mm-hmm. The publisher knows the paper, and the paper for government books is known to us all.
Because this was
All the publishers. This is not the paper.
One criticism raised by
this
the
is not the
MPs.
paper
The
for
quality of paper.
for government books. And well, the Institute of Education knows because they've been in the assessment board for a long time. They know the type of paper we use. I don't know why they decided to use different paper. Shiny paper, which actually
Glossy.
affects,
Glossy.
which affects the eyes of the children. Why they decided to do that, really, I don't understand. But writing is an aspect of art, and these are creators. These creators should be allowed to do their job. They should not be appointed.
Well, this is very interesting. Is there, even within the institute or the ministry, a kind of a system of vetting these books once they've been prepared before they even go to the printer or to the publisher, whatever? Assuming that TAI is a publisher. Once they've collected the manuscript, as you said, whoever writes the manuscript, maybe a few teachers brought together, whatever, in a seminar. Then, who has the final word before the books are published and distributed to schools?
But I think even that idea
Yes.
that the books should be vetted by a central committee is not a good idea professionally. Personally, I think in the spirit of new public management theory,
Yes.
these books, this is part of public service, by the way, the demand has to dictate. If you have a bad book,
Yes.
the parent will not buy it. If you have a bad book, the teacher will not recommend it to the headmaster.
Yes.
If you have a bad book, the student will not use it. So we have to be careful, because a lot of countries now have moved to new public management theory, participatory, enlisting a lot of people as far as books are concerned. I'm talking about books. Accountability, that you produced a bad book using government money, using public money, you have to be accountable for it. Decentralization, otherwise drawing in the private sector, that's the meaning of it. We can't continue with all these centralized models always. I'm not sure even the people who go into these committees, I don't like to mention names, that they are very good in physics.
Was the writing in physics?
They are very good in biology. They don't know that biology. Because most of these textbooks, actually, they have to be 75% content driven, 25% competencies driven. The content is static. Physics content is static. It's only when we discover new knowledge that comes in it. You can have the same content of physics, but you don't produce Albert Einstein in your country. No. No. We have never produced Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein comes from the competencies.
Yes.
The love for physics, the power of concentration,
Ingenuity,
ingenuity, the values, so that if somebody is a physicist and he has all those values, then he will become another Einstein. But you can have 75% of the content, produce people, 75% of the people who are very good in physics, but they may not have the competence. So people shouldn't be very ambitious. We have to make sure that the books are content ridden. That's the knowledge. Yeah.
Zay, Charles Mabonda, do you think the ministry, would you share, and I would like to hear from you as well, the ministry as well as Institute of Education say that the record books were of high quality? I mean, what do we mean here, high quality, and then we withdraw them? If they were high quality, they would continue to be distributed and being used by schools.
Maybe before I answer that, let me share this proverb that I've used many times. Ukiona vyaelea vimeundwa. And I want to say that the good things are because of the good people who have done or who have made them to be good. Things do not just come automatically. You have to work to make things come out. And I want to say that because of what Mzee has said, that maybe we don't have the people, the kind of people who can produce those good things. It's not just enough to have the zeal. It's not just enough to love your country and say we will work for our country, which is commendable, of course. But you have to have the skills. Professor once said, the talent. It's not just people, but people with talents, people with skills, and the right skills to produce what is required. And I think I've worked with the government for many years, and many times I'm sympathetic with the government. It's my government anyway. But I think we need to have people or we need to have the skills, the right skills, which will give us the right output or even the right outcome, as we have been saying here. It is possible that somewhere we missed some skills that was needed to make the books as they are supposed to be. But now back to your question. A textbook is largely the content, is largely the syllabus. He has said it's 75%, and I agree with him that is what is expected to be seen in the textbook. So it is possible. I haven't gone through the books myself. Some of them I'm seeing here for the first time, and I can see indeed that there are things which are not presentable. But I haven't gone through to study them in depth. So it is possible that what they have seen is that they reflect the content, the syllabus as required. I don't know. If they do, then maybe they may qualify that statement should they have given. But we cannot shut our eyes and ears to what people are saying and what we are seeing, that something has gone wrong somewhere in the production of these textbooks. We need to appreciate that people are using their minds to assess and say whatever they have said. So they can't be wrong. For sure, there is something which is not palatable with the books that we are having now. However, if I'm repeating this, if the syllabi or the syllabus is being found in the books, maybe we can be justified to say they have that quality.
Well, I mean, I read through my research for the topic that the government has actually taken the necessary steps and institute to review all the books, revise them, and probably issue a much more elaborate, much more correct and content-wise books, which they say they will be out this month, if what I've read is correct. So, but very quickly before we come to the end and conclude, do you think this problem of books is perennial? I mean, has it been there all the time?
This problem was there in the past. When nationalization came, some of the publishing companies, foreign publishing companies, were nationalized, and the Tanzania Publishing House was created, and it became the government publisher of textbooks. And the Institute of Education, by an act, circular written in 1970, was mandated to be the sole author This caused a big problem of lacking of textbooks from 1970 to 1990. Schools were going on without textbooks because the production system was not working. 1991, the government came out with a policy. This was during liberalization, went along with liberalization. They brought out a policy whereby private publishers were allowed to publish textbooks, and the government participated in it. They had a section in the Ministry of Education that was supervising the handing over and the ushering in of the private publishers. The government also brought in, with the aid of SIDA of Sweden, assistance to the publishers so as to make them strong. From there on, the private publishers continued to, even when the syllabus changed in 2005, the private publishers quickly produced the books. Now, you talked also about vetting. The Ministry of Education had a section known as Book Management Unit. And the Book Management Unit completed its tasks, and EMAC was created. EMAC is the short for Educational Materials Approval Committee. EMAC for vetting, to make sure that the Kiswahili was uniform and the facts were well presented in all the books that were approved. Later on, some people saw some of the textbooks were not even approved by EMAC, but they were selling in the streets. And some members of Parliament picked up some of those and went to Parliament and said, look at this book. But these books were not approved by EMAC. I'm sorry. Were not approved by EMAC. So they said, well,
it happens. Don't worry. It does happen.
2014, they brought in a new policy saying now publishing will be in the book writing and publishing will be in the hands of the Tanzania Institute of Education. And some of us were shocked to hear that, because not only because of interest of our companies, but because it doesn't work. It has been proved before. Why should you go to back to something which had been proved not to work in the past?
Okay. Now, I'm sorry, my panelists' time seems to go very fast on an interesting subject like this. So let us come to the conclusion now with the next question, which will go around this way and conclude. I mean, in your view, to what extent will the issuing of poorly produced textbooks impact on our education system, which I think you touched earlier, and what are the challenges of publishing and distribution of relevant and quality textbooks in schools? Very quickly. The impact.
The
if we
impact.
continue like this.
Now, let me just go back to what I said before. As I was reflecting on the kind of teachers we have, the kind of learning and teaching environment, I'm glad that Professor Galabawa has pointed out the objectives. But this shows us that it's not just enough with the objectives. I think we need to go into the ABCs of all these things. How to prepare books, who should do what. We are almost now coming to a conclusion, or it can be concluded that maybe the institute should be left to curriculum development and things like that, and leave the work to experts. I mean, as it has been mentioned all along, everybody cannot be a book writer, because it needs the skills, it needs the knowledge, the subject knowledge, and it needs the competence. So it's not just rushing. You know, as I said, you can't play with education, because this is what brings out the future of this country.
So these
we-
wrong books, if we continue like this,
Yeah.
will this impact on the education system?
That is, if it hasn't already impacted, because the books have been used. So we should be think of how to correct wherever has gone wrong. You know.
Yes.
So that's what we have all along insisted here that we should be serious with what we are doing. We shouldn't play with education, because you are playing with the next generation, if not the current generation.
Let's not play with our education.
Yeah.
Mr. Mabonda, Charles.
Yes,
Very quickly.
wrong textbooks means wrong information given to those students, and not friendly environment for the teachers and students as well. But also, if they are in the system, it means a big mzigo, a big challenge to the teacher, because books are for the teachers, and the teachers make use of the books, and they give value to the books that are available. But I think I should say that wrong textbooks should maybe they come out because we didn't work as professionally. While we have so many people who can make books be good, and they may not be within the TAI or even within the government, but we have so many Tanzanians who can make our work good. There has to be good networking. There has to be good teamwork. You have to realize that these people are there and make use of them. You have to give a bit of time. I know for the people who are doing construction work, a good brick is the one which has stayed for some time while watering it. Some of the things you need to give it a bit of time. It is through that time that you meet with people, you consult with the others, and you put value into
And we learn
into
from
your work.
other countries,
Yes,
I suppose.
yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. Professor, very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, I think your question is it going to impact on the educational system? My answer is very simple. The impact is huge and very bad. Huge and very bad. Because if we don't resolve these issues, by the way, it's not a question of publishing books. I think, first of all, we haven't resolved, in the national context, the issue of the importance of the major determinants of quality in education. Mr. Musha has said clearly. Determinants of quality everywhere in the world. Production function studies have indicated pupil-teacher ratio. Teachers in terms of quality. But second, the textbook. Second, there are others, supervision, but these are the major ones. If you don't have textbooks, quality textbook, you don't have quality teachers, and the ratios are not concomitant, then you are in trouble. You won't have an educational system. So it's going to impact on the educational system. But it's also going to impact on the delivery at the level of the school. Because when you talk of schools, institutions, we are talking about teaching, learning, and content. And when we are talking content, we are talking of textbooks. So if teaching by the teachers is not interacting with the right content, if the learners are not interacting with the right content, which is didactical, then there is no educational system over the years. We are going to continue producing people who are not half-baked or even who don't have the quality.
Very quickly, I'm saying.
Publishers are not politicians. They are not used to shouting. They shout in their books. They shout a lot in their books. And therefore, publishers have not been shouting a lot. But they are very much pained by seeing such low-quality books being pumped into the schools, while the good quality books, which were vetted by the government, have been put aside.
What do you mean put aside? Withdrawn or put on the
These
shelf? Back in the books? in the
these books
warehouses?
have got government certification
Yes.
that they are good quality. These books have no certification.
Why? Can you explain?
It means they did not go through the vetting system. They were just pumped into schools without any certification. And this is an attribute of their quality, because they were not certified. They were not certified at the Institute of Education. They were not certified at BAKITA, the Kiswahili Council.
Yes.
They were not certified at EMAC. They were not even certified by the commissioner himself, who
So
is
there must be
supposed
something wrong
who is
there.
supposed to have the last word, and they are just pumped into the schools. And this is why there are so many errors. And the errors are not only what you see, but also what you think, whether what you see is appropriate for the child. If you write something, you ask a grade 1 child to write a story, a 2-page story, then you are misdirected. That direction should go to the secondary school child, not the primary school child, grade 1 primary school child, to write a 2-page story. Means you don't know whom you are addressing.
It's unfortunate time is limited, and I don't think it is right for us to even portion blame. But I'm happy that you have actually been more professional in explaining the rationale behind the issuance of these wrong books, books with content which is erroneous, and the fact that the government, through the minister on the floor of Parliament, accepted that this has happened, and she actually said she's disappointed this has happened, and she's going to take the necessary steps to take to task those who were responsible of letting these books go to the schools in the first place. So I thank you very much, and frankly, I thought this was not a, maybe I should not have brought about the discussion on this, but now I conclude here with the fact that I think it was important that we came together and discuss about the issue of textbooks. So viewers, you heard the views of my panelists here. The government and the Tanzania Institute of Education have already taken the necessary steps to rectify the anomalies in the textbooks, which were recalled after the matter was raised on the floor of the current session of Parliament. The Ministry and the TIE, Tanzania Institute of Education, were confident that the quality of textbooks was still high, and certainly the recalling of books because of errors contained in them, I mean in the content, and the glossy paper, which was shown here by Mzee, has led to some stakeholders saying, are our children or have our children been studying using badly written books distributed by the Institute of Education? The Minister of Education said in Parliament that officials concerned would be taken to task. Whether the problem of wrong books in schools will have a long-term implication and indeed impact on our education system remains to be seen. But you've heard from Professor, from Dina, that, and from Mr. Mabonda, as well as from Mr. Moshi, that yes, there will be a big impact. In fact, Dina says the impact might already be there. So, but Professor says it's going to be huge. That's all we have for you today until next Sunday at 21 hours and on Thursday at 15 hours for the repeat program. On behalf of my panel, Dr. Dina Baga, Charles Mabonda, Professor Clinton or Justinian Clinton Garabawa, Rubariki Moshi, and my TBC Television Center crew. Thank you, viewers, and goodbye.